Welcome to my study today. You know, some years ago when I was teaching my students in Cambridge and we looked at the conditional sentences, there was nearly always one mistake that most students made. Can you guess what it is? Well, I'll tell you today how to avoid it. Oh, and there's an exercise at the end of the video for you to practice. So, let's get started. There are four basic conditional type sentences, and if you learn these sentences, really learn them, get the structure into your heads, you'll never make a mistake in the conditional sentence again. The first one we'll look at is type 0, and this we call a universal truth. If you heat water to 100 degrees centigrade, it boils. What do I mean by universal truth? Well, if I do it in my kitchen downstairs, I'll get boiling water. And if you do it in your kitchen in France, and if you do it in your kitchen in Japan, we all get the same result. So it's a universal truth. And you notice here that we use the present tense in the if clause and the present tense in the result clause. If you heat water to 100 degrees centigrade, it boils. Type 1 conditional allows us to talk about possibilities, things that might happen in the future. If I see John, I will tell him. Present tense in the if clause, future tense in the result clause. Now be careful with that. Present tense in the if clause, future tense in the result clause. It doesn't say if I will see John, and that's the big mistake. Do not put will in the if clause. With type 2, we can talk about an imaginary or an impossible situation. If I were rich, I would buy a Ferrari. Well, I'm not rich, so I'm imagining if I were. And were here is an unreal past. And we use that in another structure like this. If I were you, I wouldn't do that. Now I can never be you, so that's an impossible situation. It's were, the unreal past, with a modal verb, wouldn't, negative in this case, and a blind infinitive, do. So there's no to because it's a modal verb. If I were you, I wouldn't do that. Type 3 conditional allows us to talk about an event in the past which has already happened and I cannot change the result. And this is a very good example because we can all think of birthdays, can't we? If I had known it was your birthday, I would have bought you a cake. Now that's quite complex in terms of tenses, isn't it? In the if clause, we've got a past perfect, and then we've got a modal verb in the result clause, followed by a blind infinitive, would have bought. Now, if you can take the time to write down these basic sentences and really learn them, and I mean really get them into your heads, you'll never make a mistake in the conditional sentences again. Of course, I have to say that there are sometimes different tenses used in these structures, but that doesn't matter. If you can use what is on this page, you will get really good marks in your written and your spoken English. But let's take a closer look at the 0 conditional to see where some of these changes can be made. The basic 0 conditional form looks like this. If I'm tired, I go to bed early. Present tense, if I am, followed by present tense in the result, I go. But you can turn that around, like this. I go to bed early if I'm tired. That satisfies the same rules, it keeps the tenses the same. We can use when in the 0 conditional. When John goes shopping, he spends too much money. And also we can turn that one around. John spends too much money when he goes shopping. And also a question form. If you see a sad movie, what do you do? When you cut an onion, what happens? All of these are 0 conditional structures. So can we use a past tense with the 0 conditional? Well, yes, we can. If I made a promise, I kept it. Both past tenses, made and kept. Other tenses we can use: if plus a present continuous with a present simple. If the dog is barking, that's the continuous tense, we keep away from him. If and when are fairly interchangeable, so if and when with the present tense plus an imperative. When the water is boiling, add the pasta, and you see that a lot in instructions. If and when again, plus a modal verb. When you arrive, you must show your pass. So there you can change the tense of the verb in both the if and the result clause. I wonder if you thought about the word unless as meaning if not. Because it means that, we can put it into the zero conditional. I always eat lunch outside unless it rains. And another way of saying that, if it doesn't rain, I eat lunch outside. Let's summarise what we know about the zero conditional, the cause and effect. It's a universal truth. You remember the example, water boils if we heat it to 100 degrees centigrade. It corresponds to when and whenever something happens, something else is the result. And we see it used a lot in factual discussions, scientific and technical writing, as well as in everyday life. And the verb forms in the two clauses are not always the same, as I've shown you. But let me give you a warning. How can we use the zero conditional to talk about the future? Can we say, if you will visit London, it costs a lot of money? Well, I think you can guess by the X's, no you can't. You have to use a present tense in the if clause. If you visit London, it costs a lot of money. The visit is present, but it has a future meaning in this context. Simple present with a future meaning. So you know what I'm going to say next. Do not use will in the if clause. If you've enjoyed my lesson, could I ask you to please subscribe below and ring that bell? Thanks. Now let's have a look at some exercises in the zero conditional. You might think they look easy, but really the idea is to get the pattern firmly in your head so you don't make this mistake with the will which we've been speaking about. Exercise 1. Supply the correct tense of the verb in brackets. The answers follow. Exercise 1. Answers. Next time we should continue our studies into the conditional sentences with the first conditional. If I see him, I will tell him. So, thanks for watching. Please subscribe below and I'll see you next time. Bye.